It's still me, Joe Mobley, the original uncloseted conservative. Guys, we got an awesome show for you tonight. Unfortunately, we're going to be talking about Don Lemon. I'm wearing this jacket in honor of him. He is such a serious figure, a serious journalist, just the epitome of what it is to be a black man, minus the getting pounded in the behind. We're also going to be talking about Loudoun County, my unfortunate county where I live, and the school board is absolutely crazy. My old stomping grounds, New York City, apparently, I'm glad I didn't buy a house there. I don't know, Jeremy, you might have aspirations of having a home in New York City. Squatters can steal it from you. And another bastion of leadership and hope for all Black Americans, Ketanji Brown Jackson. She's very confused about the meaning of the words in the Constitution, which is fine. It's not like her job is to elucidate the meaning of the words in the Constitution. Guys, all that and more, and I'll start. All right, before we dive into the show, we've got to pay the bills. So number one, right under the show, you can become a paid member if you're listening on podcasts, YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, wherever. Just click the link below, thejoemobleyshow.com/join. $5 a month, you get a mug, you get a t-shirt, and you get access to me that the rest of the internet doesn't get because I don't answer all of your random tweets and pings and emails and that sort of thing. Guys, check out our affiliates. This week's affiliate is Z-Stack, thejoemobleyshow.com/Z-Stack, the very best vitamins, nutrients for your health, quercetin, zinc, vitamin A, B, C, D, whatever you need. They're GMP certified, they're kosher certified, and they are made in an FDA certified facility, whatever that means to you. All right, now we can start the show. We've got Outspoken Samantha, our co-host, and a guest, Jeremy Ryan Slate. Jeremy, people know us. Tell the people who you are. What do you do?
Well, I'm excited to be here on this episode of the Joe Mobley Experience, where I believe tonight it's going to be a bloodbath. And I live here in northwestern New Jersey. It's kind of very similar to like living in like Ohio or the Midwest. And we have 24 chickens out here. I have a pig. We live on 5 acres, and I've got a couple daughters that absolutely run my life. So that's what I do.
I didn't know you were in North Jersey. My dad passed in January, but before that, he split time between Jersey and Maryland. He lived in Maplewood, up on the hill.
Oh, Maplewood is not North Jersey, man. That's like Central Jersey. That's right by Seton Hall, where I went to school. Like I'm in I'm in like the hillbilly boondocks. That's where I live.
Nice. Samantha, how are you doing?
I'm okay right now. I am just messing with the settings on my screen because I just don't have my crap together tonight. So it's going to be fun. I'm great, guys.
This is like you being a classic woman. You're like, my picture's not right. Your picture looks fine to me.
Okay.
Yeah, you're coming in good. You can keep tinkering. It doesn't bother me at all.
No, I feel like I look fuzzy. Like I've grown a beard and I've been on testosterone for the last, couple of months. I'm just like, what is going on with my picture?
Can we just punch in on you? I want to see this beard. Let's see here.
I was just saying I look fuzzy. So.
Well, hey, man, at almost 36, I've grown my first mustache. So, I guess I'm proud of myself.
When you met your wife or when you started to date your wife, did you have facial hair at any point in that time?
I couldn't grow facial hair. Like every 3 weeks I would shave. That'd be about it.
Oh, man. See, I've got this theory. I tell young men this all the time. They're like, oh, how was the military? How was this? I'm like, shut up. Listen, pay attention. When you meet the girl, sometime in dating, you have to grow facial hair. If you get her the experience of facial hair before you're married, you've got it locked in. You can shave, you can not shave. I was clean shaven our whole dating relationship and then our engagement and early marriage, military, law enforcement, military. So just clean shaven the whole time. So now I'm restricted. Like I can't, every 5 days or so, she's like, shave. So,
I don't know, man. You look sweet in some mutton chops. I could see it.
I know. All right. Well, let's look at this first story. Great looking black guys. If I could find the right button. Now, why did I put them like that? That was a mistake. Oh, well, we're there now. So, internet folks listening, if you've not seen, there was quite the juicy interview between Elon Musk and probably the greatest journalist of our time, if I can say that here. Sam, did you want to intro this story?
Well, I think that Don Lemon is someone who probably doesn't need an intro. He is the man, the legend, Don Lemon himself. I think a lot of people have probably heard that Don Lemon had the potential to have a show on X. I'm not entirely sure why.
Wasn't it going to be like the biggest contract in the universe, like bigger than Michael Jordan and Joe Rogan combined?
Yeah, and rightfully so. I still can't figure out. I don't know how this all came to be, but somehow
DEI.
we were all, huh?
DEI.
DEI.
That had to be it. So his first interview, he decided to go big or go home, and he invited Elon Musk to sit down and have probably one of the most enlightening conversations I have ever witnessed in my entire life. Touched on some very important subjects like, slavery, because we definitely do not talk about that enough. Tried to get involved in Elon's, childhood, and because I'm sure we all have a lot of questions about that. But shockingly, after this entire interview took place, that was the end of Don Lemon's career on the platform X. And after watching these clips, I still can't figure out how that happened either. So I would love to watch some of these and bless others with the opportunity to hear them if they have not yet.
Oh, yeah. Heartbreaking stuff. We should start a GoFundMe to get Don Lemon back in front of as many people as we can. Here's a little bit of the interview for your listening enjoyment.
Do you believe that people are dying because medical standards, DEI is causing medical standards to be lowered? Do you actually believe people?
You might need to turn it up a bit.
I believe that if we lower the standards for what it takes to become a doctor.
You're saying if we lower the standards,
Yes.
but do you believe people are dying because the standards are being lowered?
I don't
Or have
think
been
that is
lowered?
yet an issue, but it could become an issue.
Okay. But the actual evidence in history shows the exact opposite. If you look at how minorities are treated by the medical system, most doctors now are white. And there are lots of mistakes in medicine. So you're saying that white doctors have bad medical care? I'm trying to understand your logic here.
Yeah, that's not what he was saying at all. He was saying if sometime in the future we lower the standards of training, the acceptance criteria, then this is the classic if-then statement, Don. We're talking about cause and effect, which my 9-year-old, my 7-year-old, my 5-year-old, and pretty much my 3-year-old have figured out. But somehow, Don hasn't figured out cause and effect.
Well, all kidding aside, Joe, I think that the problem is with someone like Don Lemon is the same problem you have with a lot of people in media, on TV and things like that as well, is they're used to having, the IFB in their ear and having a producer tell them what to say or what not to say. And they're not able to even do platforms like this, right, where they can have a long-form conversation. They don't need a format. They don't need their questions put together. So he's used to coming into a conversation with an agenda to reach a certain result. And when he gets to a point where he doesn't know what to do with himself, the producer jumps in and says, Don, say this now. Like that era of media is disappearing. And I think when you look at somebody like Don Lemon, that's why a situation like on X wouldn't last for him, because he just doesn't have the ability to be a journalist like modern journalism is. It's very different than it used to be.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Just in case truth in lending. Let's see. This is the script for you all. So this is what a Joe Mobley Show guest gets. 5 whole statements with links.
Was I supposed to read this?
And that's it. Yeah. Well, I can't read because I'm black, and I can barely use the internet. That's why I have a white co-host. She runs the internet for me. Don Lemon's not capable of doing this. So this is like bullet points like, hey, we're probably going to talk some about these 5 things, these 5 people, stories, whatever. But no, Don Lemon, he couldn't survive, just formulating his thoughts. And when he's left without his, that thing in his ear, he talks nonsense. This is 2018. This is the most recent data I could find on physicians in America. So 56.2% white. All the rest would be called minorities for Don or anyone else who's confused. I think black doctors make up
this is where that producer in your ear fits in, because they would be feeding him this information, right? Like in an interview like that, he's making claims without somebody in his ear saying, okay, Don, here's the numbers. Here's what you need to know. That's how media used to be, right?
This
And I
is
think
that's
how it's very different.
This is a really easy figure to not screw up. It's about half. About half of doctors are white and the other half a minority, which is totally fine. Like, I'm not offended in the least. It's not about the color of their skin. It's about their training.
Yes.
Exactly. Well, and, you can see Don Lemon really stuttering with this topic, with this idea that perhaps if we don't select people for the position based on whether or not they're qualified for it, and just go for this like aesthetically pleasing atmosphere, how that might drop the quality of care that we are receiving from our doctors. Like, I don't understand how this is completely blowing his mind. And, to Elon's point where he's like, well, I'm saying that this is what is going to start happening. How many things do we have to learn the hard way? I mean, we had to look at, let's defund the police to find out that crime is going to go up. Let's open the borders to find out that we're going to have an invasion. Let's start mutilating a bunch of kids because suddenly we have this idea that they can make these decisions long term, and then find out that, hey, most of them are going to regret this. Like, there's just certain things that you're just going to understand that you don't have to experiment with to understand what the outcome is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not only is that demonstrating abstraction, but there's a biblical term for this. It's called discernment, being able to reason to the root of it without having to experience it. I can discern that if I withdraw all of my life savings and take it to Atlantic City and put it all on black because red is racist, I'll probably be poor. I don't have to experience that to do it. But, we live in a time
and Joe,
where...
I think as well, like, I think, like, people even look at, like, so, like, the seminary, for example, right? Like, if somebody's going to go to the seminary to be a priest, not everybody that goes into the seminary comes out a priest, because there's, once again, this thing called discernment. You figure out, like, should I be here, or do I really not want to be here? And I think when you look at a lot of medical schools and things like that, it's a similar experience, right? You get to one point because you can cut the mustard, right? You get to another point because you can cut the mustard. But if you get to a certain point where you're graduating because of your race, gender, or sexual orientation, like, that's a real problem, right? Like, I think it's especially when you're operating on people.
Yeah, well, you used to get to a certain point because you could cut mustard, but authors like Kenny Hsu, Thomas Sowell have been talking about this phenomenon, particularly in law school. I don't know how it cross-talks over to medical school, but a lot of black and brown, no, not brown, a lot of black, because brown people usually do pretty well, but a lot of black Americans were erroneously or fraudulently let into top-tier law schools, Brown, Cornell, Harvard, Yale, that they shouldn't have gotten into, and they can't hack it. So it actually increases their dropout rates. And even though after a while, these Ivy League schools, these top tier law schools started to push their standards down. And then there was some weird data about there's like an increase in the gap between female students and male students, but it's because in the middle, not on the margins for the crazy people in the chat, That I don't know why those people watch the show, but in the middle, in the normalcy of the data, women have held up in college and guys haven't done the best, particularly black guys. I don't know what our deal is. I liked school. I did well. I didn't try to race my way into Harvard with my black card, but
Yeah.
maybe I'm
Well,
screwing
and
up.
just, I mean, one more really quick thought that I had about Don's logic here, because he decided to bring in, well, all of these minority groups are receiving poor quality of care. So his answer to that is to reduce the quality of care for everybody
Yeah.
instead of bringing in more qualified people. So I don't understand how that's going to solve the problem, but it just seems to be kind of this leftist way of thinking that if we have a really bad idea, we should just keep doing it and do it more. So,
You know why, Samantha?
and then blame
Because
Republicans when things go bad.
you know why,
What?
Samantha? Because you know how equity works. We all die equally, and we all die together. That's how it works.
Love that for us. Makes me feel
Dr.
really
Dean
good.
in the chat. I see you. Got to have you back on the show, brother. Hey, if you're in the chat, let us know where you're watching from. And obviously, I'm watching from the infamous Loudoun County, which, if you guys haven't seen, we are in the news again. We did it. Woo! I wish I had a popper. Loudoun County, we are so awesome. We can spend so much taxpayer dollars on transgender bathrooms and unicorns and all this stuff. So when the school board's not hiding and lying about sexual assaults in the restrooms by the same young boy who claimed to be a woman because he put on a dress, when they're not slandering and committing libel against parents and citizens of Loudoun, which they love to do, they're creating nonsense policies. So COVID kicks off, and then they decide public comment is going to be changed. Public comment is going to turn into this Palpatine-esque scene where the school board lords over you and you sit all by yourself behind this podium like in the center of an empty room. For the longest, they wouldn't even let people in to like be in the crowd, and we stood outside in line. We couldn't use the restroom. We'd have to hit the tree line. In the sun and the rain and the snow, all the parents were all out there, and they let us go into the building one at a time. Eventually they started wanding us because who knows why. They let us go in one at a time and stand there, and they had the cameras at our back, which is great for people that need a stenographer or people that might need to see our lips moving to hear us talk. So now big scary COVID's over, and one of the school board members said, hey, why don't we bring the cameras back onto the speaker's face? We have people in the room now. And they said, yeah, sure, let's vote on it. And when they pulled it up to vote, they ripped the rug out from under her and said, actually, we move to eliminate the cameras completely, not just not have them on the parents. Then they left, and then they came back and said, actually, we're going to remove public comment. We're tired of hearing from the citizens. We're tired of hearing from the parents. They're a nuisance, and we just want to do what we want to do. And they're going to vote on this. They're going to vote on this, I think, on Thursday, a week from today, which is outrageous, but it's life in Loudoun.
Well, to save the school board, we have to end the school board and form the next galactic school board council.
You've been reading up on your Vietnam. It became necessary to destroy the town to save the town. United States, Vietnam. Like, this is... They wonder why everyone's so pissed off with the government. Let me tell you how this is going to go. This is going to blow up in their face because when they were doing the last round of shenanigans, my friend Ian Pryor, shout out to Fight for Schools, started doing this thing that he called a shadow school board. And we would meet at the same time the school board was meeting and have our own conversations and have our own broadcasts and things like that. I hate to spoil it, but if we do that permanently because the school board bans us from making public comment, we would have to submit our comments via email. They would delete those emails and say, oh yeah, we reviewed it or whatever. And we'd get the canned response. Thank you, concerned citizen, parent, for trying to stop young boys from raping girls in the bathrooms and trying to make us stop lying about it. We're going to do what we want, which is take out more debt. Let me tell you guys something. When you're looking at the bills, you don't have to read the whole thing. When you're in there and you're voting and it says such and such government should contract debt, just say no. The government is in a tremendous amount of debt. You shouldn't contract out any more. Wherever you live, you should force that government, however small it is, county, little tiny town, you should force that government to balance its budget. That would change things tremendously for this freaking trash heap of a country that the taxes on our debt are more than the national defense budget, which is insane. Just like, not the taxes, the interest. The interest that we have to pay on the national debt is more than the DOD budget. So we're effed. We're just effed. Those kids are effed and their kids screwed. So that's fun.
I'm feeling great about this. So glad I joined tonight. But no. So I mean, we constantly hear about how they can't figure out why we don't have trust in the government and trust in our public officials from everywhere, from the school board to the White House. And reading the article, it sounds like they're just really tired of parents coming to them with these passionate speeches where they're so fired up about some of the things that are happening in the school and the things they can't believe that are being taught to their students. And they're angry about it and they're letting the school board know we're not okay with this. And you would think the school board would say, hey, we've got some problems. We need to fix some things here. We need to improve the relationship between ourselves and the parents of the kids that we are teaching. Instead, their solution is to stop hearing from the parents, shut the parents out, keep the parents out of the school. Like, I don't know about you guys.
Did you read why they're doing this? They say that having cameras on reduces transparency.
But no, here's the thing, Joe. Like I think when you look at it, in actuality, the people that behave like this and the people that act like this, live in a constant state of fear. They don't have courage. They don't have an ability to do a lot of things. That's why, they're terrified and they put a mask on. And they have to put a mask on you, and they, want to make sure you're triple boosted and things like that. And, they want to tell you what is safe for you. They actually live in a constant state of fear. And they have an inability to confront others that show any courage at all in life. And that is why, like, something like this is absolutely terrifying to them, because I know Dr. Dean was in the chat. He would appreciate this. If we turned it into pro wrestling, these these people on the school board wouldn't last very long against those parents, man. I'm just saying that.
Yeah, that's true. Hey, I would sign right up for that. That would be dope. Yeah, they said that we need to increase transparency by turning on the cameras. So shout out to Glenn Youngkin. This is Youngkin's comment about Loudoun shenanigans.
This is stunning. To be clear, this is the same school board in Loudoun County that tried to hide girls being sexually assaulted in bathrooms, didn't want to tell parents when there were overdoses at their schools, and now has the completely misguided view that turning off cameras increases transparency. I mean, do they remember who they work for? They work for parents. And the Loudoun County School Board needs to absolutely get it together. This is...
Yeah, you need to be functionally retarded to believe them when they say we have to turn off the cameras to increase transparency. Would you accept that of a police department saying, hey, we're going to turn off our body cams to increase public trust? That's obvious bullcrap. They think that you are an idiot. That's why they're doing this. They're going to pass it. They have the majority.
Well, they have enough of a voting base that are idiots to continue to support these things. That's the only reason that these things continue to be put out there and they continue to be supported, is because there is enough people. And I don't even think brainwashed is a strong enough word these days. I have used the word programmed numerous times before. And I always think of that scene from Captain America, Winter Soldier, where you have the guy in like the booth and he's like repeating the messages like over and over and over again. And then he says like one or two words and the guy is completely like, he blocks out all reality. I mean, he comes face to face with the people that he knows, with Captain America, who's his best friend that he's known forever. And he cannot recognize the person that is right in front of his face. And, you know, he's attacking him and he's, you know, going after him. And I think of that all the time when I see stuff like this, because people are like, how can they keep voting Democrat when this stuff is so obvious? And it's like, I don't think that it is. I don't think it is to them. They get the same messages repeated over and over and over again. And then when they hear words like MAGA or Republican, they're blocking out all reality and all rational thinking. And then they start just behaving in the way that they have been programmed to respond when they hear certain things. That's the only explanation I can come up with for this.
I concur.
Some may even say it's a bloodbath.
You're going to get us taken down with all of this hate speech and rhetoric.
But here's the thing as well, Joe. Like, I think that's interesting to remember about this. Like, it's good and it's bad. And this is why I'll say it's good and it's bad. It's good because these people don't reproduce, right? Like, I think that's something to consider. And when they have children, they somehow make it so their children can't reproduce. Now, that's what's good about it. What's bad about it is they don't reproduce, so they want to get your kids. And I think that's why it's important as a parent to take responsibility for what your kids are learning. You know, get involved in your school board. I homeschool both my kids. So, like, if you have the ability to homeschool, do that. Like do whatever you can do. It's whatever you can do to take responsibility, because these people don't reproduce. And if they do, you know, their reproduction is epic fails. So take responsibility for your own family.
Are you suggesting that these chest-fed babies are going to have worse outcomes? I think they're going to be fine.
When I saw the movie Meet the Fockers, I did not think it would become a real thing, but it became a real thing, man.
You could milk anything with nipples, Craig. I have nipples, Craig. Could you milk me?
No. You don't remember in the second one, Meet the Fockers, where he has the prosthetic boob and he puts it on and he's like breastfeeding the kid?
It's even worse than that. They're taking all these chemicals and hormones so that not only Meet the Fockers. Do you remember that? This is terrible. You remember that clip from Family Guy when Peter tries to nurse Stewie? He's like sleeping and Peter takes his nipple out and puts it in Stewie's mouth. And he like wakes up and he's like, what the crap? There's like a hair hanging out of his mouth. It's pretty bad. I wish I had the clip because I would. Yeah. All right. Well,
so sad I missed that.
I'll send it to you so you don't have to miss out.
I would appreciate it.
Joe keeps it on his phone for whenever he's having a bad day.
Speaking of bad days, I wish that I missed this, but my friend of the show, Tracy Beans over at Uncover DC, she was streaming on her podcast live coverage of oral arguments. And am I the only one that just titters a little bit inside every time I hear oral arguments? But anyway, she was streaming oral arguments and doing commentary. Really good. You should check her out on the Dark Delight podcast. That's Tracy Beans. Unfortunately, I had to hear this woman, Ketanji Brown Jackson, who was definitely not hired because she's a woman or black. She was only hired because she was the most stellar attorney and judge in the history of the world, as demonstrated by her deep understanding of how the Constitution works. She's very concerned that there are some out there who hold the view that the First Amendment could seriously hamstring the government. And lest you think that my tweet is not truly her belief, you can hear it straight from her mouth.
Justice Jackson?
So my biggest concern is that your view has the First Amendment hamstringing the government in significant ways in the most important time periods. I mean, what would you have the government?
Honestly, I don't really know where to start with this because it's not a joke. Like, she's supposed to interpret the Constitution. And without diving into all of the articles and all of the amendments, common understanding is that the Bill of Rights hamstrings the government. Not private company, not private citizens. The Bill of Rights essentially says, government, you can come this far and no further. And the First Amendment, specifically the 5 protections afforded in the First Amendment, I can't understand why these words came out of her mouth other than she's an imbecile and we're screwed because she's going to be on the Supreme Court for the rest of our lives.
Well, and the Second Amendment exists when the first one goes all wrong.
I'm starting to feel like it's going wrong, Jeremy.
How wrong does it need to go? Yeah, it's truly astonishing that some words like this are coming out of the mouth of somebody whose literal job is to interpret the Constitution. I can't decide if she is pretending or if she's really like this, because it's almost like she's saying, the way that she's saying it is to make it sound absurd that the government sorry, I lost my train of thought there, but it just makes it, she's trying to make it sound absurd.
She thinks it's absurd that there can be an authority over the government.
No, the problem is she's Michael Scott. That's the problem. She is Michael Scott.
You know what's kind of devastating about that comment? Everyone knew that, and everyone's experienced a colleague, a superior at work who was almost criminally stupid, just completely incompetent. And it was kind of like, man, it's a big joke. Oh, it's the manager at Staples. Oh, it's the manager at, well, not at Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A only has the most qualified managers, but it's a manager at some place that doesn't really matter. That shouldn't be the situation for a Supreme Court justice. Like, the most important issues for this whole society are in your hands, and you are Michael Scott. Like, that's so true. Jeremy, I'm going to make so many memes and possibly...
Joe, we had this family friend that's no longer a family friend, and she spent a lot of time telling my wife and I about, like, breath work and how important breath work is for, like, managing your weight. And, like, she's been working really hard in her breath work. And my wife just looks at her point blank and goes, oh, how's that going? Because it doesn't look like it's going well.
Oh, no. What is breathing? Just breathing?
Literally breathing. Yes, breathing.
As work?
As work. Breath work. Breathing.
All right. Well, just when you thought it couldn't get any dumber. I saw this tweet. This guy has the correct view of government and how things are going. He says we've kind of gotten into this kind of parental type government where we're saying, stop, I'm going to count to 3 and 3 turns into 5 and I'm going to count to 10. But
giving them unlimited power. It's basically telling
drugs.
The parents are on what?
The problem is the parents are on drugs.
It's a very possibly the problem. All right, here we go. I don't even know who this guy is, but it's over on my Twitter, at the Joe Mobley, if you want to check it out.
It's basically telling the government, stop, or I'll tell you to stop again. They think that the way to enforce the Constitution is to somehow convince the government to stop doing what the government was never supposed to be doing in the first place. Basically, they do this through protests, through courts, through trying to choose new bums. It's basically telling the government, stop, or I'll tell you to stop again. It is the...
So the key point there is, this is what we're doing. Where's that quote? We're telling the government to stop doing things that they were never allowed to do. And they've had this scope creep. If you've ever worked on a large project or manage a large project, the schedule gets longer, the cost increases, and the things that the project's supposed to do seem to just expand. That's just how this works. The federal government is not supposed to have this type of expansive scope creep because they have limits on them. That's what a republic is, which we'll get into when we get into Rome. And for all of you men out there, don't worry, settle down. We will be talking about the rise and fall of Rome. But, you know, I know that you guys are going to be spent after that and you'll need to have a cigarette. So we save it for the end. But the government has just taken on all of these things. Think about this. Post-COVID, we essentially, you and I as adults, we essentially have taken on this mindset. I used to always be allowed to do this thing, but then China released some terrible awful, and now we're on the other side of it. And now I need to ask the government's permission for me to do something that I've always had permission to do. But now I feel like I need to ask the government's permission. And the government steps in and says, oh, yes, we will take on these new powers. And now we need hunting licenses and fishing licenses. We need permits to build in our own homes. If I wanted to build a closet, I need to register paperwork with an idiot in Loudoun County government who has to come out and inspect my closet for safety. It's absurd. The whole thing is absurd.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I think kind of what I was thinking of before is that she's trying to reshape, just getting back to what Ketanji was saying, I think she's trying to reshape how people think about the Constitution, which I think is to your point as well. It's that it's absurd for us to interpret it the way that we have been interpreting it. When we say free speech, we mean free speech. And she's like, don't you understand how dangerous that is? I mean, I don't think that the people that wrote the Constitution really meant it that way, because they didn't take into consideration all of these other ways, all the ways that we could be harmed by people's words. So I think that, you know, the tone of voice that she uses is she's trying to get her audience to think that our way of thinking is completely backwards, and that, you know, the way that we think it is how it's going to cause harm to other people. And then it makes sense to them for the government to step in and protect us from those things.
100%. Yep.
Well, I think New York State used some AI and they rewrote the Constitution because they forgot what it means. You know, apparently you could just take people's property and fine them for hundreds of millions of dollars, and they don't have to commit a crime, but it's all good, man.
New York is wild. New York is so wild. And they're doing the thing that they always do. They're driving it with their hyper liberalism down into the ground so fast, so hard. And then they're going to call a Republican, like they did last time with Mayor Giuliani, to come in and fix it. And then they're going to be like, oh, we've done such a good job. Now we can go back to the drug, sex, and rock and roll and all of the LGBTQ nonsense and lap dances for kids and teachers. And they keep saying, why is this happening? Why are we devolving into chaos whenever we do our nonsense radical liberal agenda? They can't connect the dots. And it's so frustrating. Like, my family is big black New Yorker family, and trying to get them to connect the dots of why it's so terrible and how they think and vote it'll be my life's work if I can get that through.
Well, I was in New York last week, a couple weeks ago, walking down 7th Ave, so from Port Authority, which is 139th, and we were walking down to like 46th Street, so 39th down to like 46th Street. In that period of time, we walked past the Roosevelt Hotel. Scary as heck, because that's where they're keeping all the migrants. Like, they're out in the street, they're smoking pot, like there's just kids and parents out all hours of the night. We walk a little bit further down 7th Ave. There's somebody shooting up right in the center of the street. And like, this is like right by Times Square. This is like an area where you're not supposed to be seeing these things. Like, this city is falling apart, man.
Did you see the stickers? There are stickers in Times Square now saying, this is a gun-free zone. Please, no firearms.
I did see that, and I pointed it out to my wife, and I'm like,
Isn't that
wait, there's no
crazy?
Second Amendment here? How does that work?
Now, Times Square, I used to like to visit New York. I used to say New York City is a great place to visit, but now I'm just so anxious. Even when I go into D.C., I'm so anxious. I've told this story a few times on the pod, but it bears repeating. My family, well, did we have 3 kids or 4 kids? I think it was post-COVID. I think we had 4 kids. We went out to D.C. Every time we have family visit, they want to go to D.C. They want to see this and that and the other thing. So I oblige them. We go out. We're in D.C. on one day in the normal places on the mall. We hit up some museums, see the monuments, come back. The next day, literally, not 24, I guess 12, maybe 14 hours later, there was a dad tandem wearing twins, which means he had twins attached to him like in a baby carrier, and some bum came up and stabbed him to death. And I'm like, we were standing with our 4 kids where this guy was like 14 hours prior, and it wasn't nighttime. It was like 2:00 in the afternoon. This guy's just getting stabbed up, and it wasn't in some weird corner of DC. It was literally just off K Street, like where there are household name politicians and restaurants and museums that you've seen in the movie National Treasure. Guy's getting stabbed to death with his babies on his chest. If you live in cities, get out while you can. That's my 2 cents. And if you don't, then, play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
Get
Don't
yourself
come to
some
my-
chickens.
Yeah. Everyone's like, oh, if the crap hits the fan, I'll come to Joe Mobley's house. Let me tell you guys something. If you're not invited, don't come.
Joe
That is
literally
all.
has a wall and gun turrets around his house. Like, they pop up, and they're like, there's like a guard tower and everything.
Oh, man. Well, you know what? If I lived in New York, I probably would need that. Guys, vigilantism has finally reached our crap cities. Big shout out to the Spider-Man fans, the Batman fans, my favorite vigilantes, which brings me back to childhood because my favorite superhero was Spider-Man, and my best friend's favorite superhero is Batman, which is kind of gay because he doesn't really do anything but spend money on gadgets. But Steve broke my heart. He said Spider-Man would be useless if he didn't live in New York City. And I was like, yeah, that's legit. That tracks. Daily Mail reports vigilantes show up to evict squatters at a Queens home where the owner was arrested. So if you guys aren't tracking this, New York City has the worst homeowner security in that their, quote, squatter rights are such that if you squat on a home for basically 25 to 30 days and make a fraudulent claim that you live there, that you've paid rent or taxes or some type of utilities that you can get switched into your name without notifying the homeowner, because no one would possibly pay someone else's bills for nefarious reasons. If you do any of that, you can straight up jack someone's house. This isn't title fraud. This is straight up, oh, house is empty. I'll walk in. Maybe I'll pay a water bill with the city. And in 31 days, I'll make the claim that the house is mine. And that's exactly what happened to this woman in Queens. And she tried to change the locks. And then the police arrested her because she was harassing her squatters and trying to keep them out of her home, which now she has to go to court to fight with the squatters that the house that she has meticulous records is hers is not theirs. And we wonder why some of these good old Queens boys, more of a, yeah, I'm a Brooklyn baby, but shout out to Queens. Yeah, whatever. You guys did a couple of things right. Nas is from Queens, and my wife doesn't like that I listen to Nas, but that's okay. But the Queens boys, they went and paid the squatters a visit, and the news media was there, so it was a cordial encounter. We don't know exactly what these men said, but I have some guesses that they said when the cameras are gone and the night falls, if you're still in this house, we're going to take care of you. And the squatters left. They picked up sticks and left. I kind of like to see this. That this is people taking care of their own communities. If the government's not going to do it, if law enforcement, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, are going to take 12 hours off, then this is what society turns into. It turns into communities standing up for themselves, rooftop Korean style, and threatening to bust some heads. I give this a thumbs up. I do.
No, I'm right there with you. I mean, my question is, what is the argument to actually care about what is happening in New York? Because obviously I feel bad for people that did not vote for these things, that, have that ability to see, if you vote for this is going to happen, that had that common sense, but obviously they were outnumbered by the people that lack common sense. And all of us keep saying, okay, well, you get what you vote for. And, from the outside looking in, my question is, what is the argument for us to really have compassion for these situations? Because we knew this kind of thing was going to happen. We knew that the people that they voted for were capable of allowing these things to happen. And at some point, it's just I don't know what to tell you anymore. I'm done telling you, the story of Noah with the rain coming down. At some point, he was just peace. Sorry, guys.
Oh, no. If
so
only
there's
we
no
known
argument to care, is there?
Yeah, don't live there, don't care. And it's you know what I mean? I'm 45 minutes from New York City, and the last thing I want to do is spend a 3-hour round trip to pay $15 to get into the city. I think it's 15 or 16 now. And they just added a new tax where now you're going to pay another $15 tax on top of your toll to get in the city. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. No, thank you. It's even guys, if you did the math on the amount of money that the city makes on bridges and tunnels on a daily basis, where does all that money go? You know what I mean? New York City is a mess. And at the same time, good riddance, right? You get what you vote for. And I think that's what it comes down to. I wouldn't live there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And from the outside looking in, we're you know what, guys, we have tried to tell you, we have tried to warn you, we have tried to tell you in numerous different ways that this is the path that your city is on, and you keep just sliding down that spiral. So at some point, it sucks that this is happening, and I care to the extent that, this is an example of, we're seeing our free speech attacked, we're seeing our 2A rights attacked, and now we're seeing our property rights attacked. So it's concerning on that level, because we're seeing all of our constitutional rights go straight down the toilet to some degree or another. But as for what is happening in New York itself, this needs to be a message to these people. Not only are we going to stop trying to warn you, we are not going to rescue you. We're not going to help you. I've got to take care of my family. You've got to take care of your family and your kids. I don't know what to tell you.
We can't save them from themselves. It's the classic old Ben Shapiro line. You guys are going to get mugged by reality. You think that you can have wage equality. You think that you can have equity, forced equity, and everything will be kumbaya, but it won't be. People will stop working. You think that you can not enforce laws and people won't break the laws and commit violent crimes. That's not how reality works. Bad people are bad people, even if you want to live in utopia, AOC. And one of you said something that made me want to ask, because it was you, Samantha. We are definitely on the edge of losing what it is to have private property rights, but we're also losing a lot of our speech rights, that's why we launched the show, was, hey, you need to come out of the conservative closet, which is share your thoughts, your beliefs, your opinions, no matter the consequences. Which is worse? Because we're going down both roads, but which is worse, losing our speech and maybe even thought and belief rights, or losing the ability to actually own anything?
That's a tough one.
Both lead to death and destruction. And since we're going down both roads, it's kind of like, which one of these grenades do you think is going to blow up first?
Well, I mean, speech has been on the attack for years now with censorship. And, you know, I mean, it hasn't been any secret that what we say has been heavily monitored, especially coming from a conservative's perspective. We've all have experience with that. And I think if I were to choose between the two, I mean, I would rather give up my property than my ability to speak freely and access information freely. When it comes to the two things, I think speech is just being able to say what you think, what you believe, and communicate with others and access information that's important to you is just an irreplaceable, just something that you can't replace.
I think so, but also at the same time, the thing you have to consider as well, like speech is important, it's vital, but at the same time, you start taking people's stuff, it's going to get real aggressive real fast. And I think that's something to also consider is like, if you want to destabilize a nation, start taking people's stuff and they're going to do something about it real quick. And I think that's the problem that we have, right? Because if you look at a lot of events we have in this country, right, it's a lot of Hegelian dialectic type situations. They have a solution they want, so they have to create a cause to actually push us towards a solution. So you start getting people angry enough that you start taking their stuff, a couple people do something stupid, and now the government has cause to be able to do even more. So I think while free speech is important, I think taking people's stuff has the ability to cause a massive problem real fast, which at a certain point is going to take way more than just our speech away from us.
Absolutely. Well, and I think sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Joe.
No, go.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, I think it's just on the fact that when you start taking people's property away, it's easier to see, it's easier to recognize when those rights are being taken away, which is why I think that it, you know, elicits a much stronger response from people. So on that side of it, yeah, I mean, I think we'll finally wake people up in the way that we haven't been able to when it comes to free speech, because people don't as easily recognize when they're being censored, particularly if they're not even trying to speak out. But when it comes to your home and your property, maybe that's going to be the thing that gets people's attention.
You know, on the Hegelian dialect, it used to be thought experiment, but now we're seeing it where we always see it, LA, Chicago, Detroit, New York City. But zooming in on New York City, they created the crime problem. They created the influx of illegals, and that's what they are. They are illegals, illegal immigrants, illegal alien, criminal alien, whatever you want to call it, which manifest in the obvious reality of stabbings, shootings, people getting pushed onto the subway tracks, rape, murder, all kinds of things in these freaking subways where crime has always happened. I remember being a kid in the late 80s in New York City, and things were starting to get cleaned up, but that was the place where crime happens. Now you look at the subway now, and they've got freaking military out there and state police. They used to have rifles, but Kathy Hochul said, oh, the big black rifles are scary. Which I think she's just racist. I think she's prejudicial against black rifles. But
at the same time, Joe, like since 9/11, they've had National Guard at Port Authority. Like I can't remember the last time that, you know, because I tend to go into Port Authority a lot because I hate dealing with that traffic. But you see National Guard every single time you're in Port Authority as well. And it's a normalization of that. And I think
they
that's
used to have rifles there too at Port Authority, and they switched to pistols. But I think they have rifles on site, if I'm not mistaken. That's the new normal, dude.
Well, and that was one of the biggest things about when I was in China like 10 years ago, and like there is like not just National Guard, like these are all out military helmets, rifles, like everywhere. And I think that's the type of normalization we're going into, and you know, a lot of what we're encountering, you see it in the schools, you see it in a lot of different places. We're seeing like a Maoist communist type revolution here. That's what we're experiencing.
Can I just say there are, just to report on the numbers here, because I think I was texting, if I wasn't texting you, Samantha, I was texting someone else. But there are about 380 people watching right now. 275 of you are on X, which is like big shout out to Elon Musk. Whatever they're doing over there, YouTube. I can't see your numbers, Samantha, for Facebook and YouTube and stuff, where we're also streaming. And thank you guys for watching over there. But I should hit the button. There's a button for that. Go and subscribe to Outspoken Samantha's channel, YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, all the places, all the things. But yeah, so things are working out. Yeah, I think this is the second stream that Twitter X has surpassed the other channels. So good for you guys. Obviously, I prefer that you go over to Rumble. And Rumble, you can click and get into the locals community and see the member-only show, where we're going to be telling you just how screwed America is, and if we're on the edge of a Roman Empire-esque style collapse. So I've got my ideas. I'll tell you, Jeremy, you changed my mind, because I've always thought the country changed. That indelible mark of change on the country was sometime between 1964 and 1971. But there's something that you said on Tim Pool's show that I was like, you know what? That's exactly it. And then I typed it into Twitter, and a bunch of other people had really good arguments for that.
You know what's wild, man, too, is there's so many of us that have independently come to that same thought process as well. And I think that's what's really interesting. Like, I wasn't like somebody else like read it and I'm like, oh, that makes sense to me. I was like, looking at like the year 1913, I'm like, wait, that happened, and that happened, and that happened, and it was like, damn you, Woodrow Wilson.
1913 is wild. Type 1913 into Twitter, guys, and just go down the rabbit hole. Just chase that rabbit as far as it goes. Well, unfortunately, that's about all the time we have. We could probably do another 5 minutes before we have to cut it and head over to members. But I will leave that. Yeah, I don't want to crack into this last story because it'll be like a weird tease. We would just like crack into it and then have to leave. Yeah. Well, anything going on with you guys? I know as a woman, you probably really wanted to talk about Rome. It's probably always on your mind, the emperors.
No idea.
Do you honestly? Do you think about the rise and fall of Rome at all?
No.
My wife, she should have recorded this, but she did the thing. You know, I hadn't heard of the trend. We were in bed one night. No, she was in bed. I was in the bathroom, and she was just like, "Babe, do you think about?" Or she was like, "How often do you think about Rome?" And I was like, "Rome." And I'm thinking like vacationing, like, and she's like, she says, and Italy, I want to go to Italy. That's like the place that I want to go. I want to go see the Vatican and stuff. She says, and then she says, no, like the Roman Empire. And I was like, oh, every day, at least once a day. And she just busted out laughing. You have to. That is the man card. How many times you think about Rome, you could get it punched every day. And
my wife's response was way better, Joe. She heard about this TikTok trend and I didn't know about it yet. And she said to me, like, honey, you're suddenly relevant. I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, you know that like college degree that took you forever to pay for, that master's degree you have? She's like, people suddenly care about it.
I don't want to get it. Something about Roman propaganda. What is your master's in?
Early Roman Empire propaganda. I studied the tools that Augustus used to create a 500-year worship cult of emperors.
That's so niche. But truth in lending, I talk about the cult of worship a lot. That's a good. This isn't a strict etymology, but a decent etymology of the word culture is the cult of worship. What do we as a society decide is worthy of our praise? And in Black culture, it's clothes and shoes, hoes, you know, making it rain at the strip club or whatever, which is why we have so many problems, Black America. And then they look at me, they're like, oh, you're a sellout. Oh, no, I'm not strung out on drugs and I don't have 5 baby mamas. I can't believe that I've done this to myself. However will I survive? But yeah.
What are we guilty of as white people? Is it like Bud Light and like stuff like that? Like what are our things?
Well, the word on the street is that white people stole all the black people. They went and captured the most athletic society on earth at the time and brought them over on boats called the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. Classic white boy names, I know. And got here and called themselves conquistadors, dropped off the white people, and went down to Central
I
and
think
South
you're
America.
mixing up like 7 different stories right now. I don't know what just happened.
That's what I learned from the 1619 Project. That's not true?
Apparently. You want to have your mind blown on this one, Joe? So I was way too into family trees for a while, and my dad's name is
That's a white
Truman,
people
right?
thing. There you go.
Oh yeah, okay. My dad's name is Truman, and it's a family name. Like, wow, there's a lot of guys named Truman in my family. So I'm reading this census from 1835, and it turns out Truman was born Freeman, and Freeman's father was a slave, and yeah, here I am.
There are a lot of former slave or slave gone free last name Freeman. Super popular in South Carolina or Georgia roundabouts there. So what you're saying is you're basically black. We're brothers from another mother.
I'm pale as anything, but apparently it's in my family tree.
All of the African Americans I know are white. Jacobuyans, Elon Musk, people that I used to serve with, all African Americans, people from Africa, born in Africa, they're 9 out of 10 of the ones that I know are white. Just is what it is. Yeah. All right. Well, that's our show. Thanks for sticking with us, guys, gals, unicorns, rainbow fairies. If you stuck around this long, then you're a fan of the show. So you might as well like and subscribe. Make sure you don't miss out. Check out Outspoken Samantha's show. It's available. It's not available on podcast. You should do that. But it's available on Rumble, on Facebook, on Twitter /X, and YouTube's. In about 10 minutes, we're going to be kicking off the members only show. Go to thejoemobleyShow.com/join. It's also just right down here, wherever here is for you. You could just click the link and join. Jeremy's going to be taking us through, well, I'll say how screwed the country is. Got a really cool Heritage Foundation article about the parallels between the United States and Rome. So stick around for that. Jeremy, where can people find you, my man?
I am at Jeremy Ryan Slate on X. I am also I am at Jeremy Ryan Slate Pod on YouTube, and I'm on Rumble as well.
Awesome. Samantha? Any last words?
Outspoken Samantha on YouTube and Rumble and X, and someday maybe I'll do a podcast, but until then, just go subscribe to my channels where I talk about just all this stuff that's contributing to the dumpster fire known as America today. So it's a good time. There's always fun things to talk about, like Dylan Mulvaney.
You want to do that next week? I watched the music video, the unadulterated one, like the actual one.
I did a video on it already, and I've had that song stuck in my head for like 3 days.
It's just
terrifying
how they make fun of what it is to be female, femininity, women. It's like watching Spaceballs. It's like
the thing people don't get. The thing people don't get, Joe, is Dylan Mulvaney is the ultimate troll. The ultimate
100%.
troll. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
The things he says, like as a woman, you should be so offended. But he's like in this new protected class. It's wild.
He is like a cartoon character. He is like someone from South Park or The Family Guy come to life. Like it's that stupid and comical.
Well, and I don't want to bring up a whole Dylan Mulvaney thing, but I just have to say I'm not offended by what he, a dude that wants to wear a dress. I'm just offended by the fact that my biology doesn't make me a woman, but a guy in a trashy feather dress and heels, that's the definition of a woman. So
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So fun. good time to be alive.
Yeah. It just you're just a gay man. It's okay. We're past the point in society where people make fun of you. Well, adults, you'll still get bullied in school, and that's because, not to say that's gay, but that's literally gay. It's a little odd. It's abnormal, and that'll always be made fun of. But sorry, not sorry. That's how it is. I don't know, but you all go.
That word's apparently offensive now, by the way. It's people
Which
in
word?
love with people of the same gender. You can't say gay anymore. It's now offensive. I saw this yesterday.
Oh, like same sex attraction or whatever.
Yeah, there's a word for it, and it's a new approved word, right? Because it's got to be approved. But gay is now offensive.
Here, let me see if I can find on the internet real fast. The word is gay. Nope, still gay. Like getting pounded in the butt by another man. You're gay. Breaking
This
news.
is much more
folks.
interesting than the fall of Rome.
Breaking news. You heard it here first. Smash the like button. That's all we got. We'll see you guys next week. Now to him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to his power that is at work within us. To him be the glory in the church and in Christ Jesus throughout all generations, forever and ever. Amen. If that was the first prayer you've ever prayed, I hope it won't be the last. Until next time, this is the Joe Mobley Show.